On this episode of Horror News Radio, the Grue-Crew review, Joker.
I am your host, Doc Rotten, and this is Horror News Radio, the official Gruesome Magazine podcast. Back with me again this week are the scariest, goriest, bloodiest co-hosts on the net, including the one and only podcasting rockstar and international cosplay queen, taking the role of all three scariest, goriest, and bloodiest, Vanessa Thompson. Vanessa, how you doing?
Joker here. Wait, that's
you're
wrong.
you're doing Harleen there.
A little Harley. I am doing great tonight. Excited to talk about this movie.
You got to say Mr. J. That's all she says.
Mr. J. Mr. Doc.
All right. Well, it's me and you, kid.
Yep.
Yep. Me and you. We're here to review the film Joker. So you might see that this is, instead of H&R, it's SH&R. Superhero News Radio. That might be a little corny, but it's a thing. So we're here to do Joker. Although I had an interesting discussion with one of our fans on text, Jeff Larimore. He was debating, this is as much a horror film as perhaps American Psycho.
Oh, yeah. If you're going to call any Argento film a horror film, you would absolutely call this a horror film.
It kind of is. It kind of is, yeah. I mean, do you consider American Psycho a horror film, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And there's, although, most people are, putting parallels this with Taxi Driver and, what's the comedy one? King of Comedy, right? Mm-hmm. I see a little bit of American Psycho in this too.
Yeah, absolutely. You get almost a little bit of Psycho itself when you get to the relationship with his mother.
Okay.
I don't know. Yeah,
Maybe.
I think inspired. I think it's very inspired.
Yes, but yeah, this is a film that is grabbing everybody's attention. It's doing bonkers at the box office, breaking records for an R-rated superhero film in the fall, and it's got everybody talking about whether it's a crap movie or a masterpiece. And Joaquin Phoenix's role as Arthur Fleck, the Joker, Oscar buzz, all kinds of things, all across the board. So it's going to be interesting to talk about our reaction to the film. But before we do, I kind of want to dive into, Joker up until this film, and especially when they announced that this film was going to be made, and our reaction to that. Why don't you start us off, Vanessa? What did you think when they announced that this Joker was coming out, and it was going to be yet another Joker after we just got what was it? What's the Joker that we got from
the Suicide Squad?
Suicide Squad, right?
Mm-hmm.
And instead of Heath Ledger, and oh my goodness, what the hell is DC thinking? What was your thoughts? Is it the same, or were you good to go?
I was like, what? Two Jokers? Two storylines of Jokers? What are they thinking? What are they doing? But once that sank in a little bit, it kind of thought, well, okay, gives them an opportunity to do something different, right? So in the beginning, I really wasn't all that interested because we didn't really know what to expect or what they were going to do. A Joker movie with Joaquin Phoenix, like, what is that going to be like? But, along the way, trailers we got along the way, they looked okay. They didn't really reveal much until we got that last trailer before the movie came out. And I don't know. That's the one that really kicked me in the head, and I was like, "Wow, this is gonna be some something interesting to watch." And I really, really think it has been. I think that so many people have a disdain for Jared Leto's Joker, and I think this is just going to solidify that even more.
It might very well. It is certainly a lot different. Yeah, wow. I too had the same kind of initial reaction to the news, like, oh gosh, do we need another version of the Joker? Do we need a Joker movie? What Todd Phillips, the guy behind Hangover and Starsky and Hutch, he's going to do this? And like, what is he going to? How is that going to be? And it's supposed to be what, a serious film about what? What?
No
And
Batman?
no Batman, and it's not in continuity. It's not going to be part of the other films, which at that time they were very much wanting to have them all connected. I think it benefits us that between Aquaman and this, we got Shazam, which
Mm-hmm.
was, while it was part of it, they obviously referenced Batman and Superman in it, quite frankly, but not in a way that made it felt so adherent, so
Mm-hmm.
woven into it. So it kind of broke that that lining, right? So I think it makes this a little more palatable, and I think, yeah. So like you said, by the time we got that last trailer,
Mm-hmm.
I was sold, and it was like, wow. And then of course, some of the buzz when it premiered, and it was like, holy crap! I got what we were talking about, getting into 8 minute um, standing ovation when it
Mm-hmm.
premiered. I was like, holy crap! It's the best film.
Well, when we walked in to see it, I just checked IMDb, and the rating on that was 9.6 out of 10.
Is it?
And
I wonder
that's
if it's still that where.
insane. It's not, it's 9. It's
Oh,
it's
it's 9.
9
Just
out of
dropped down to
10.
9.
And that's
Still,
still amazing for a movie.
a movie that arguably nobody wanted,
Yeah.
right?
Nobody knew
And
that they wanted
nobody knew that they needed it. Yeah.
that they
So,
yeah.
so it's quite an interesting road to this film coming out. And well, the one great thing, there's a lot of really cool things in that trailer, but the one thing is like, hey Murray, when you bring me out, can you introduce me as Joker? And the way he just says it, the body language, the cadence, and everything is just so wonderful. And um, I don't know. We'll get into our full review here in a second, but I think this film is going to end up like laying down some iconic scenes and dialogue that people are going to be thinking about years and years from now when they're doing like the best ofs and the
Oh
history of
yeah.
films, stuff like that. It's
History of this character.
well, that definitely,
Yeah.
but even in film, just film period, right? In the past
I hope
decades
they
and stuff like that.
do. I hope they do. Things have gotten so cynical lately, that I think some great things might be getting overlooked, so I hope that this isn't one of them.
Yeah, of course, this is a very cynical film. This
Oh
is not a
yeah.
feel good movie, but that's not their point. Their point was different. But all right, so I'm sure everybody's kind of figuring out our first impression, but let's do it and put it on record. Oh my goodness, because our reviewer on the site, Jack Black, that would be awesome. John Black. Sorry, John. Why did I do that? He's literally gonna punch me in the face.
No, you have Goosebumps, house with a clock in its walls. It's Halloween. You got Halloween on
Yes,
the
yes.
brain.
No, it is. It is. But John Black, he gave it a 2.5, so it wasn't the most favorable review. And I've read a few others from people uh, that I check up on regularly about their thoughts on film, and they didn't necessarily care for it either. So but let's find out what you and I thought. So start us off. What was your first impression of Joker?
Well, I can say right out of the gate that mine is very different from theirs. I really, really loved this movie. Like I said earlier, think it is inspired. It is such a honest and gritty look at this character and how a character like this could develop and what kind of person is he? Where does he come from? What made him this way? Uh, you get a look inside his mind. See, you get to see almost through his eyes in the way that this is put together, and it's so heartbreaking and confusing, and you constantly feel like you can't trust yourself. Not so much that you can't trust what you're seeing, but you can't trust yourself in trying to interpret the Joker character or Arthur Fleck, right? It's Fleck.
Fleck, Arthur Fleck.
I almost said Flick. I was like, wait, no, not Flick. Fleck. Happy, as his mother calls him, Happy. Oh, just I loved everything about it. I loved you and I discussed this, the way they made 1970s Gotham just crawl under your skin. It was, you felt sweaty, you felt steamy, you felt dirty and grimy, and like there were rats crawling around you, and people were angry. People of every stage of life, every rich people, poor people, everybody's just angry in Gotham at this point. It is ripe to boil over and have something shake this town up. And you feel that. And you feel that in the way that Arthur is treated. You know, when we see him in the beginning, that opening scene that we see in the trailers where he's getting mugged and beat up by these punk kids, right? And it's a it's a little sad to watch, and it's a little pathetic to watch, right? To see this grown man in this situation, it just feels a little pathetic. And you know, when you see something like that, you have this feeling of sympathy, but yet a little bit of repulsion at the same time. And I think they just built on that feeling from there, where you feel sympathetic for him while at the same time knowing there's something repulsive about him, but yet you can't trust it wholeheartedly or put your finger on it. And to me, that's the whole thing. That's the beauty of this entire movie, and I think that plays from the first scene to the last scene. You know, like you were saying, got a lot of comparisons to a Scorsese movie, and it does that while still feeling fresh and unique. You know, it has that big city, you know, underground kind of feel to it, but in a relatable way. Even though it's 1970s Gotham, it's issues that we're still dealing with today, but not thrown in your face and oh, this is a political grab kind of thing. It just feels par for the course. Anyway, I'm going on. I just could go on. We need to hear your first thoughts.
Well, my first impression was sitting in the theater. I knew I liked it, but I still had to process it. So I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't entirely certain how much I liked it or not. We'll get into it, but the final scene is one that I had to chew on a bit. The final scenes and determine whether I like that approach or if I was dissatisfied with that approach. But up until then, I was amazed at the performance from Joaquin Phoenix. He is fully into this character, from his cadence to his walk to his appearance to
Mm-hmm.
the way he just holds, his body, his entire body language, the rhythm of his language, everything, the looks in his eyes. It's an amazing performance, and it to me, and some people are going to like this what I'm about to say, but it rivals Heath Ledger's performance.
Mm-hmm.
It's different, and there's reasons why it's different, but at the same time, I don't have a problem at this point looking at Joaquin Phoenix as a Joker and looking at Heath Ledger as a Joker and saying that they're both the Joker, and they both represent sides of the Joker. I was surprised how, even though it's a standalone film, how much it still felt like it was in Gotham and part of the origin of the DC universe, if you will. It plays. They weave some very key moments of DC into it in an
Mm-hmm.
interesting way that could have backfired on them if they hadn't handled it really well. But there's an irony that's woven into that makes it work really, really well, in my opinion. And because Thomas Wayne, Bruce Wayne's father, has a pretty big part in the story, at least motivationally. and what I liked about it is while yes, we do get an origin story, air quotes, if you will. It's not really. It's more because we don't, it's not really. It's more an origin of his motivation. What made him? Because I have a feeling he was already that way, right? He was already the person he was. The medication was keeping him under control, and as the events of the film happened, that sets him free. And then other events, Gotham, what Gotham is, basically ignites him. And in a way, that's his origin. But really, what it is the motivation that's in the final third of the film that forms the actual Joker character, that turns Arthur
Mm-hmm.
Fleck into the Joker. And for me, that is the most riveting part of this film. There's a lot going into that I really love, but that when he's looking around and he realizes, what he wants to be, when he realizes that, the people are wearing clown masks and emulating him, and he, it's coming, he's starting to realize the influence he has and the power that he has and what he can do. And then even more so when, he's in the cop car in the final scenes heading back and he sees, the riots going
Mm.
on. And it doesn't stop there. So you know, it, it's a transformation of Arthur Fleck into Joker, which is, an unconventional story arc that you would have in a film, and one that is difficult to pull off. And I think Todd Phillips has done it. I think he also has, winked at the audience a bit here with what because we have an unreliable narrator. We
Mm-hmm.
find out, right, because Arthur Fleck is might not he's definitely not all there, but what was he telling us? Is it true or not? And so you got to wrestle with that too, and a lot of people aren't enjoying that idea of it. And that's the part I was questioning at first. There's one part of it I did like that I thought was really quite interesting, but another part of it that I was kind of like, well, I don't know if I like that idea, but maybe I do. I don't know. So I had to wrestle with that. But in the end, I just couldn't stop thinking about it. And I couldn't stop thinking how gorgeous isn't the right word, but the cinematography and the filming,
Mm-hmm.
of Gotham and, the time that they are, whether it's the 70s or 80s, I'm confused about what really date it is. But, it captures that, even though it's Gotham, it captures what New York was before, they revived it and rescued it from, this where trash was literally piling up in the streets, and and it was not a safe place to live. It's not the tourist attraction that it is now, right?
Hard to believe.
It is, and I've seen both parts of it, and this, man, it was it was gnarly, and man, it really does breathe and ooze onto the screen, and Arthur Fleck is buried in it. He is. It is consuming him. He's living with his mother, Penny. He has a job as a clown, which he's not very good at. He wants to be a comedian, which his mother even says, "Wait, Arthur, don't you have to be funny to be a comedian?" So nobody gives him any respect, and eventually, he snaps, and it's fascinating to watch. There are political kind of jabs stuck in there, but at the same time, it's I was pleasantly surprised on how much I really enjoyed this film. Yeah, Joker it's likely going to be, and I haven't gotten to my grade yet, but it's likely going to be in my top 10 this year. High in the top 10.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
And I do think that Joaquin Phoenix definitely, if he doesn't get at least a nomination, it'll be a crime. At this point, I'm kind of thinking like, how, man, he should win. I don't know
You
if he
know,
will, but
the
he
sheer
should.
physicality of this performance, the way he moves his body, that little dance that he incorporates to this version of the Joker that he has, it's just it amazing to watch.
Oh
Watch
man.
him do that, the way he's contorting himself and whatever. I don't know if they used any kind of special effects or anything on him to exaggerate that, but man, it was so telling of the character, especially in moments. Mm, are we gonna should we go spoiler?
Well, not quite
Or
yet.
not
But we're
yet.
going
Okay,
to, yeah.
okay. I'll hold
But
it back then.
but there, like even to kind of jump on what you're talking about, like when he's just walking down the street, he doesn't. It's not like anybody else. It's
hmm
like it's unique and that it's quite the physical performance, even in that subtlety, and then it's right in your face. There's one scene which is in the trailers where he's stretching out his shoes. These big clown shoes. He's stretching them out. This is before he actually loses the clown job, but you just see every sharp angle of his back and bone and
hmm
rib cage, and it's kind of scary and and unhealthy, right? It's
Well,
unhealthy.
he's so incredibly thin. It harkens back to like Hamill's Joker, right? Animated series kind of killing Joker, that almost skeletal
Mm-hmm.
way that he has about him, and it really, to me, that harkened back to that.
Oh man! All right, so yeah, spoilers. So we're going to want to get into spoilers if you have not seen Joker, and you're not one of the many who made it. What did it make? 90? What did we say? 95?
97?
97? Not almost $97 million over the weekend for an R-rated Joker film. And then if you add foreign into it, it totals up over what 250, almost $250 million.
Jeez.
That's insane. That's insane. For a superhero. Well, it's not for a Joker film, but an R-rated Joker film at that, right?
hmm
Just kind of shows you the power of this particular character.
Outside of the DCU,
Yeah, I don't
kind
know.
of,
I
but
don't. No, it definitely is outside of the DC. You as far as the film series goes, but it. I don't think it's terribly far from
oh
realizing
no,
what the
yeah,
character the Joker is, and it is definitely not for kids. This is definitely not a kids film, and if you're taking kids to it,
please no
you probably should.
spoilers.
So yeah, let's dive into spoilers. And we'll count down 3, 2, 1. You were going to say something that was spoilers. Why don't you start off?
So what I was going to say tied into the physicality of his performance is you see him contorted and bent over and hobbling and the lack of self-esteem, the downtroddenness, the the visual of how many times he's just been beat up for no good reason at all. And he switches that off the moment he steps on stage with Murray, and he's standing tall and he's confident and you see the Joker. You just
Yes,
see the Joker ooze out of him, and his voice changes a little bit, and the way he inflects things, and it's beautiful. Like Joaquin Phoenix did such a beautiful job with this character. Even if you don't want to look at him as the Joker, just this Arthur Fleck character that becomes this person is just so amazing. Amazing to watch.
it is. It is, and getting there is equally amazing because you see him learn the trade, if you will, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because his friend clown gives him a gun.
Friend
Uh,
air quotes.
Yeah, air quotes, and gets him in trouble. Actually, gets him fired because it falls out of his pocket at a
Mm-hmm.
children's hospital. So yeah, so he has a hard life, but he finds this power in him, or this thing in him that he didn't know he had when he gets attacked by the 3 or 4 guys, right? I don't know, maybe 5, I can't remember. 3 or 4 guys on the train,
Mm-hmm.
and they attack him, but he ends up arguably defending himself until he goes after one.
Yes.
um, but and ends up shooting and killing him. And makes a name for himself because he's a clown. Nobody really knows who he is, right? And although there's a couple detectives on his tail, that makes for interesting scenes later. But what you find out is that later on in a bit of dialogue is, I forget who he's talking to, but he basically admits that you know the killing didn't. He thought it would bother him, and it didn't.
Oh, the clerk when he's getting his mom's records
Ah, yes, that's right. Oh, that
when he
was creepy.
goes into Arkham.
Yeah, and he was like, I'm just a clerk.
Hmm.
But yeah, so he admits that, and that's a powerful realization for this character. It kind of sets him free. It's kind of scary when you mirror that up against our current society, and you know,
Well, yeah, the way the fringes of society feel like they're just overlooked and not cared about and stepped on, and their funding is cut, and you know why don't they care about them as much as they care about the people at the top of the big shiny gold buildings? Uh,
yes.
so it's a very tale as old as time, right? You know, the downtrodden being even more so by those who have more.
Yeah, except for this is the darker side of that tale.
Much, much, much darker. And speaking of, can we talk about Thomas Wayne a little bit?
We have to talk about Thomas Wayne. There is a twist in the film that gets twisted in and of itself with his mom and why she keeps writing Thomas Wayne. I'll let you reveal the spoiler and dive in, but it adds a initially potentially groan-worthy twist into a oh wow, that totally makes sense twist for this character, right? What
Hmm.
is that twist of which I speak?
Well, the twist is that Penny has been telling Arthur this whole, well, she hasn't been telling him. She's been keeping from him this whole time, his whole life, that Thomas Wayne is actually his father. Uh, when he finds this out, he's at a point where he already is hating Thomas Wayne. And this sort of revelation somewhat breaks him, but at the same time, somewhat, it seems like it gives him some relief, right? He finally has a purpose and an answer and someone he can and lean on, so he thinks.
So he
So
thinks.
so he
Yes.
thinks. Yeah,
Yeah.
for quite some time until he asked Thomas Wayne himself. And the biggest twist of all that they were kind of leading up to was that, no, your mom's crazy, literally, and you were adopted.
And, and
Um,
and nobody knows who your parents are.
and nobody knows who your parents are, and thwap, here's a punch in the face, leave me the fuck alone.
Literal punch in the face. To
Uh,
which he takes the blood that's running from his nose and makes clown face on his. So it's
right? Wow.
it does give us some really interesting interactions with Thomas Wayne and also a very very young Bruce Wayne that kind of hints at a bigger picture, a picture that we aren't going to get in this film. So I did not care for the idea or the potential that Bruce Wayne and Arthur Fleck were the Joker were stepbrothers. I did not
Right.
care. That was not an idea that I really want to run with, and surprisingly, it's not entirely dispelled, but it's pretty heavily dispelled because he gets he sees the adoption papers and he sees everything else, but there's an argument that you could make that that she that is part of the cover up that she's
Oh, yeah.
talking about, right? Because it's sort of unreliable narrator, so there's
Yeah.
all this gray, all this
I
murkiness
love it.
that's hanging around here that nothing is what is anything, and
Hmm.
but at the same time it doesn't matter because it informs this character, right? It bends him and breaks him and reshapes him. And the irony is that even though some films, I think even like Tim Burton's film, right, the Joker has been responsible for the death of the Bruce Wayne's parents in some iterations, and I'm thankful they didn't do that here, but they did get pretty close, and I think in a way because we do see the Waynes get shot once again, and the pearls fly down into the street once again. I, I'm over that, but at the same time, okay, it actually has some weight here beyond just the the birth of Batman and the change in Bruce Wayne.
Mm-hmm.
But it introduces this parallel between these two characters. It also allows the actions of the Joker, what the Joker is responsible for, to be responsible for this. So, indirectly responsible for their murder, which is far more fascinating and far more complex and far more ironic than, literally being there holding the gun, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, in the context of the story, it works out so well, and you get such a better look at their demise, right? It makes sense that there would be a riot or something going on, or that, the way that they were gunned down would happen that in that way, because they're, the elitists and they're taking down the elitists. And I really, you start to see that scene again and you're like, ugh, again. But
Exactly, exactly.
but in this case, and especially with this Thomas Wayne, you're like, all right, let's do this. I want to see this happen.
Yeah, they make this Thomas Wayne a little bit of a dick, but
He well
hey,
he made they make him deserve it, and that says so much about the character of Bruce Wayne later on too, because it gets your wheels turning, right? And you start thinking like, man, if Bruce Wayne had no idea his father was such an asshole. He grew up his whole life. He modeled his entire life out of after being a good person, being a good man, making the right choices. If he'd known that his dad was such an asshole, would he have turned out that way too? Would he have taken all these Batman skills that he has and, you know, been bad? And I don't know, it just so many things started to unfold for me in that moment. And I like how this movie kind of creates alternate universes in your mind of storylines and potential for future stories.
definitely, definitely
Fun.
fun entirely. So we talked about, is this a horror film in the way American Psycho is and stuff like that, and there are some gruesome deaths in here. It's not. It doesn't rival the axe killing in American Psycho in
Mm,
that respect, and it's also the violence is presented in a very bleak, down and dirty way. It's not glamorized.
right.
He kills the three people. He kills Murray, who is played by Robert De Niro, really well, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I will agree with some of the criticism this film's getting, that other than Joaquin Phoenix, the rest of the characters, the actors, don't get enough meat in their roles. I kind of see
Hmm.
that, but at the same time, it really is a one man show, and
Yeah.
it's thankfully that one man show is so good. If it wasn't,
Yeah.
the movie would hurt. It would tank so bad. But to my point, did the because there's some controversy about this being a violent film being released, and they upped security at theaters and stuff. What is your take, Vanessa, on the violence of this film?
Well, I'm all for the security after what happened with Dark Knight Rises. It's you don't want to see that ever happen again. And when there's a potential for there to be copycat people or people to jump on something like this and call back to that event, you never ever want to see that happen. So I was when even when we went in, there was a security guard there, and that did give me a sense of comfort because we're in a world where you think about that kind of stuff now. But as far as the violence of the movie, like you said, this is not a movie glorifying violence. It's not a movie glorifying the Joker character. And um, I think a lot of people misunderstand or only see one side of the story of these villains, people like Harley Quinn, people like the Joker, and want to glamorize what they do as opposed to seeing them as, you know, just murderers, right? Crazy murderers who kill willy-nilly for fun or for chaos or for whatever they're doing it for. This particular movie, though, the level of violence wasn't all that great. There, have you seen Hostel? Like, there are movies out there that I think, in a way, glamorize.
Yeah, yeah, just look at the Saw films, right?
ac- well, yeah, acts of violence, right? Way more than this one does. And I think, the media plays things up. I can't say that the film companies, they put their stuff out there, but at the same time, all publicity is good publicity, right? It gets people talking about it, gets people wanting to see what the big hubbub is about. And I just don't think it's fair to throw this movie's too violent. This movie shouldn't be seen. Like, we can't start censoring things like that. We can't start censoring actual really great pieces of film, pieces of cinema that is exploring different topics and showing them in a different way, because it is through cinema primarily over the past 100 years or so that culture is centered. That's where we get what we do from. We see it in movies, we see it on TV. So you have to be careful when you have a medium where you can open people's minds. And I don't know. That feels a little soapboxy, right? But it's not intended to. I just don't think that this is the type of movie that deserves that sort of criticism so harshly.
Well, the the roughly four. Well, there's outside of the beatings, which I guess five. So out of the five violent elements of this film, they're used to great effect for the story. Like the Murray scene. Like it was tense. You
Well,
didn't
with his
know.
mom.
Well, his mom even, right? Because
Yeah.
you didn't know what he was going to do, because you knew he had the gun. So that's one of those great tricks in the cinema. If you got the gun in your pocket, you know he's got to use it, right? But he's been playing with it, using it on himself so much, and this was supposed to be,
Mm-hmm.
this is a totally different movie. I wasn't entirely certain which way it was going to go, and it's presented in such a just bam fashion. It's just there and it's happened, and you're like, you you literally gasp out loud.
Mm-hmm.
And it's shocking and horrifying, and it should be, and it is. And but it's the tension is palpable there. His clown friend gets it too, and that scene particularly worked well for me, because of the other clown friend that's there, and that was an intense scene too, because you didn't know.
Very.
You, you totally did not know where this character was going to go, and that's refreshing. That's refreshing.
But it's
Even if it's in a dark way, right?
yeah, but it just builds into his metamorphosis, right? His change into the Joker.
Right. Now let's talk about Zazie Beetz. And
Yes.
I mentioned that the characters didn't really get much. I think Zazie Beetz, she doesn't either. She becomes the girlfriend. But there is one particular scene that pays off the other scenes that happen. And she nails that scene. So what I'm talking about is, uh, she's a neighbor with a daughter, and they ride the elevator up together, and they have a brief connection, one that in a romantic film would be just strong enough to start a romance, right? And that's what happens here. Arthur Fleck, she looks like she pities him at first, but then they start, she's there for him when his mother has the heart attack or the stroke. She goes to the hospital with him. They go on a date. They see a movie, and it's really fascinating to see this side. And you're as you're watching it, you're trying to put it together. But what you find out, and it depends on how skilled you are, whether you figure it out ahead of time. I did not. That she wasn't there all along. There are telling signs. There are so many telling signs that now that I know, looking back at it, because she never interacts with anybody else and stuff like that. But that's fine. It was all there. Uh, and when he enters into her room, into her apartment down the hall, not knowing that she doesn't know him, which is in and of itself really fascinating. She comes out and sees him there, and her reaction makes everything worthwhile. It was so right there and raw, um, and the fact that they don't really resolve that and leave it up in the air is in and of itself kind of frightening.
That's true.
So what did you think of that?
I didn't think about that.
What did you think of that reveal? Did that turn you off, or were you all about that?
I liked it. I liked that it turned the story, there was a slight shift in our character. Things like him not being on his medication anymore start to fall into place, and the untrustworthy narrator that he becomes at that point. Like, what is real? What isn't real? Who's he talking to? Just all this that you build up in your head to cast doubt. Yeah, I thought it was great. And she was terrified, and I thought that was perfect because he's there bearing his soul to what we think is someone he has a real connection with until we find out that he doesn't. We get all these little flashback scenes to where she was and now she isn't. And so now we know he knows that in his head, right? That's kind of the moment of realization too, right?
Yep.
Oh,
Even if he figured it out, now it doesn't matter because now he knows, and that's really the
right.
important part of it. So
Right. And I thought that was beautiful. And I'm going with he see but when the two later on when he's with his two clown friends, we get a glimpse at a sort of code, if you will, maybe
yes,
that he has.
maybe a moral
Yeah.
compass, maybe not.
So, kind of, or one that he's breaking through at least.
Yes.
Um, so I'm going with a little bit more. He just kind of realized I don't want to hurt these people. These are not the people I want to hurt. Uh, and he just left. I'm hoping. I didn't think about it till you brought it up just now, but
Well, we don't know; they don't show.
we
But
don't.
and you can make an argument that they do show every act of violence he does, and but then there's the ending, and then that throws cast out into that. So let's talk about that. So at the end of the film, he's killed Murray, and the police have captured him. They're taking him away, and the riots are in the city, and everybody's wearing the clown mask that he's kind of inspired. And somehow they know it's him. I guess they watched the show. I'm not really sure. It doesn't matter, but they free him after wrecking into the police car and basically put him up on a literal pedestal, right?
Hmm.
To which he basically fully becomes a fully realized Joker at that point. If he hadn't already been, that basically put him at the center of his universe, right? But then we get a coda, if you will. We find him. We get the smash cut from Bruce Wayne to him, and he's in the hospital. And we don't know the time frame. We don't know if this is before or after. We have no idea where this is happening. And he's talking to a psychiatrist who resembles, if not is, the lady that was giving him the information earlier in the film. Well, his whoever he was
His
doing,
social
the
worker.
social worker, right?
That was a different lady.
I was thinking that, but I've heard other people say they're the same, so I'm not really certain. Now it's that has cast doubt on me. But anyway, so he's talking to her, and he's he says something about he's thought of a joke, but you wouldn't get it. And you're like, okay, crap. What's real? What's not? What did I just see? It throws everything kind of up in the air, which is infuriating and brilliant all at the same time. Which is then followed with him leaving, and he's in chains. He's handcuffed. One of those things where the handcuffs, like in the bars, that you see now a lot. But now he's free, and he's walking down the hallway, leaving bloodied footprints until he's chased down at the end of the hall. So, and then it ends. So what is that telling us, right? Is it telling us, did he get captured? Is it before he actually gets set free and gets put on his medicine? What is this? What's happening? Or is it all a dream? We don't know, right?
We don't know.
What did you think? Did that piss you off, or were you all about that?
It pissed me off until I saw the bloody footprint.
Yeah.
Because once you see that, it could be anything. That could be part of the illusion in his mind. you know?
Mhm.
Or it could be that he just killed her. Why is he walking out alone? Why is he running from the orderly later on, when he
Mhm.
gets to the end of the hall? Um, we know that he does go in and out of Arkham. Throughout the
That
Joker's storyline, he goes in and out of Arkham at times, and I mean that's how he meets Harley. So I just beautiful.
yeah.
Kiss.
Right. Because I was wondering if the joke, because what is the joke? And we wouldn't get it. Is the joke, Bruce Wayne?
I think the joke is, yes, doing to Bruce Wayne what he feels was maybe done to him, abandoned, an orphan in a way, right?
Very much so. Very much
So
so. Right.
here's Bruce Wayne, abandoned, an orphan. Although, I mean, he has uh
Or he has Alfred. He has Alfred.
Alfred, yes. I couldn't
Yes,
remember
and
he has Alfred.
arguably cousins and all kinds of other
Yeah,
people
but
eventually, if you want
in
to go
in
for
his soul, deep down in his heart,
it.
he's an abandoned orphan. Um, so yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. That particular part, because then it could, yeah, she wouldn't get it, but that doesn't mean everything didn't happen.
I, I prefer that. That's what I prefer. And if you
Yeah,
embrace that, I think you have a better time with this film. And if you don't, if you continue to struggle with maybe it's all a lie because he's unreliable,
yeah.
then it becomes a less satisfying film. So,
Well,
but
if
it's
you don't, it's kind of like one flew over the cuckoo's nest, right?
yeah, true.
So find something you like about it. I have to say something though before we start getting into our final thoughts and stuff. Um,
Okay.
I think I saw a couple of homages maybe to Heath Ledger in
Oh,
it.
I definitely one huge one. But go
Okay, you
ahead.
tell. What's your one huge one?
The one huge one is him in the police car with his face
Yes,
up against the window. Yes, definitely.
yes. The way it was shot, the way he looks, everything.
Yep.
The second one is right before they cut the cameras on the Murray show when he's coming up close. He says, "That's life," which is Murray's ending line. But to me, right before he got cut off, I felt like he was throwing it back to Heath Ledger's Joker by doing that gruffly, I'm not going to be able to do it, but that's life kind of thing. And then they cut him off. And it even seemed like he was making that kind of, how Heath Ledger kind of shook his head a bit when he
Right.
would talk and he'd say that. It seemed like that was kind of like a little, like, wink, a little
Hmm.
thank you, tip of the hat to Heath Ledger's Joker. Listeners, I want to know your opinion on this too. Like, write us. Did you see that? Am I crazy? Did you see that, Doc?
I saw it. I saw it, especially in the police car. I was thinking
Yeah.
that, it just felt so much like, you know, like I could make the dots in my head from that scene to the scene where, we see the Joker in Dark Knight, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
which is a fascinating thing because age-wise it doesn't work at all. But that's a different story. Doesn't matter.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Maybe there's some magic potion out there somewhere.
Yeah. Different universe.
A different universe, yeah. Who knows? But anyway, yeah. Let's dive into our final thoughts because I think we could keep going. There's so much to talk about. There's definitely stuff I'm going to talk about in my closing thoughts, but I'm going to let you go first. What are your final thoughts, your score, and favorite scene for Joker?
Final thoughts are I was just blown away. I did not go in with expectations because what were we to expect? Really, it was something new, it was something different. I kind of wanted to go in and see it as that, take it outside of, everything that we've seen from the DCU and just watch this movie and see you know, what the director, what the actors, what Joaquin does with this role. And I was completely floored. There were times where my jaw was open and I was just wowed by what I was seeing performance-wise, the way he was turning into the Joker, the choices that they made, just his we didn't touch on this, the laugh.
Oh
The
yeah, well,
laugh
I wanted
that
to talk
is
about that. Well, because
yeah.
we need to mention that they give him a very specific mental illness
Mhm.
uh, where he the wires are crossed, and instead
Form
of
of schizophrenia, even,
yeah,
yes.
and he reacts with a laugh when it's inappropriate,
When he's stressed, when he's under anxiety pressure.
and it's so fitting. Now, before you finish, and I'm sorry to kind of
No, it's okay.
interrupt you, sometimes, and you can make an argument here, I think, mental illness is represented very poorly in cinema, in film, often, right?
Hmm.
And this skirts on that, I think. But at the same time, we don't know the full extent because he's on like 7 types of medication, so we don't know what else he has. Obviously, it's more than just that, right?
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, what do you think? What is your opinion on how they handled the mental illness of this?
I think because of the context, because of the time period that I'm drawing from it, 70s, late or early 80s. I think, and because we're still dealing with a characterization of a person, you know, someone who has extremes. I think in this context it works. I don't think it's meant to be taken as a great representation of mental illness, especially when we get into Arkham. But I think that's supposed to be part of the terror and to remind you this is what we did to people. This is what we did to people who were sad. This is what we did to people who didn't know how to communicate because they're autistic, and that gives it kind of a sense of a little cartoony, which I think plays into the whole idea of Gotham and Arkham Asylum. But at the same time, it just comes off as more sad and gritty that I think it works.
Well, I think they used it to inform the character, or at least the laughter. Even though
Mm-hmm.
the laughter didn't need an origin, it feels rather inventive,
Very
right?
jokery.
Right, right. It makes sense, but it wasn't used as what shapes him in the respect of the violence, right? So as a matter of fact, the more violent he becomes, the less it becomes a thing.
Exactly. I was just gonna say, I don't think he uses that laugh when he's happy or when he
I
feels powerful. It doesn't happen. I don't think that was a character flaw that is defining of him as opposed to a character trait that's defining of him. Does that make sense?
It does. It absolutely does. It does. So I'm sorry to derail you.
That's
Get
okay.
back, get back to your final thoughts here.
Well, we needed that. That's such an important part of the movie too. But, you've heard everything that we've had to say, so I'll keep it short and sweet. I would highly recommend this film. I'll tell you right now, it's getting a 5 from me. I've told many people since I've seen this that this and Midsummer are the tops for me this year. Those two movies have just really nailed it. Now we do have some stuff coming out the rest of the year, so we're gonna see where it goes. But both of these movies, to me, I did not go into expecting to come out feeling the way I did at all. And I am so happy and excited about it. Favorite scene is so hard. There's so many great scenes. So many. I want to do the big broad one, right? His sequence on the Murray Hill show.
Oh, the whole sequence. Yeah.
That whole just from the moment he gets to behind to makeup to when they cut it. I just think that's beautiful. It was so well done. I loved seeing Mark Maron in there. That was so much fun. Uh, Joaquin Phoenix and Robert De Niro going toe to toe like that was, I loved it. I loved it so much. But can I say but?
But
But I really think that interchange with Thomas Wayne in the bathroom
oh
was
yeah.
a moment that broke him and made him at the same time because the way the ball starts rolling after that is just brutal. And I loved seeing Thomas Wayne as the bad guy. I really loved seeing him as the elitist bad guy instead of as this like savior of Gotham, you know? And that was a beautiful story to me. And the way he just heartlessly just knocks him square in the face
Square
and
in the face.
square in the face, and he just takes it. And uh
I
that's
think
my
that's the last
favorite.
time we get to laugh.
I think you might be right.
I'm trying to remember. That's the last time. Now,
I think you
yeah.
might be right.
Now, before I give my thoughts, Bruce Wayne, Thomas Wayne, is he an asshole only in context of the story, or is the character an asshole regardless of if you're looking at it through, uh, Arthur Fleck's lens?
Well, I think that can be defined by his own statement of calling all Gothamites who haven't made something of themselves clowns.
Mm.
Uh, that he doesn't seem to care too much about the people that aren't at his level.
And we should say we haven't mentioned Frances Conroy enough.
Penny.
She plays Penny Fleck, his mother, and she's delightful in this. She's always
Hmm.
terrific, and she's perfect as
Yeah,
the
great.
crazy mom. My reaction is it's not terribly different than yours. I I'm giving this a 5 as well. I love this film. I love it now more. However many days, 4 or 5 days after seeing it, it has kind of festered inside me. I was like, first I was like, I liked it, but did I like it? And yeah, I've come to the conclusion that I did like it, and I liked it quite a bit. I've heard a lot of people, disparage parts of it. Even if they did like it, they still, some have said that the script's terrible and the dialogue's rough and stuff like this, and the motivation's bad, and the characters, and but everybody praises Joaquin Phoenix, and he needs to be praised because it's a tremendous performance. But I I don't see. I'm having a hard time seeing any of their complaints bear fruit.
Hmm.
Um, Outside of maybe that the other characters, pale in comparison to Arthur Fleck, and make it feel like a one man show. But I'm, I think part of that is the how powerful that performance is.
Well, side note, one man show in and of itself, right? What if it all is a one man show?
Well, it kind of might be, right?
Yes, so they would be kind of side supporting characters.
Yeah, you're not. That's an interesting way to put it. Um, but for me, I was very fascinated by this film. I just really, I loved, the exploration. I loved the look. I loved how grimy it felt. Right.
Hmm.
It is a. I mean, he's definitely influenced. There's definitely a heavy influence from the '70s films, right, and the '80s
Hmm.
films. But there's also a B movie kind of bubbling in here as well. But the best
Oh,
kind.
yeah.
And I no, so I
A little
thoroughly enjoyed it.
grindhouse almost.
A little bit, and I really enjoyed it. I am surprised. My favorite scene. Now I could choose a bunch, and I want to mention a few before I mention my favorite scene. I think some of them are going to be iconic, like hey Murray, when you bring me out,
Mm.
when you introduce me as Joker. I think we will hear that line, being used as representing this year as cinema. I think his dance down the steps
Mm.
in full costume before he realizes the two cops are at the top of the steps is visually so stunning, and I think will become iconic. It really is a visually stunning film. There's a little problem maybe with the music. I didn't have a problem with it until somebody made it a problem, and now I'm like questioning it. But I get it. But at the same time, every ball game out there uses this music. So what's up, people?
Hmm.
But I get it. Gary Glitter, is not a role model for anybody. Um, but Rock and Roll Volume Two is what it is. But anyway, so before I get too off on a tangent, get back to my favorite scene. There's plenty of those kind of scenes that I could choose, but my favorite scene was one that had me at the point where I did not know what was going to happen. I did not know where this character was, how this character was going to react, how you know, I was totally in the hands of Joaquin Phoenix and the director here, Todd Phillips. And, what are you going to show me? Because I have no idea. All right. So Gary and Randall being the tall clown that gives him the gun, and Randall being the short clown. Gary, what did I say?
Randall.
I said Randall twice?
Yeah.
Okay, it's getting late. Gary, they show up to comfort Arthur Fleck because they find out about his mom. So, but of course, Arthur Fleck has they don't know he's responsible for her death, and he's gone bonkers. And he kills Randall quite violently, quite outburst. And Gary's reaction is terrifying. He's literally cowering in the corner. He doesn't know what to do, right? And he's, oh my God, Arthur, oh my God. And it's so genuine for that character to react that way, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the way Arthur Fleck is reacting, because he's in the floor beside this dead body, this bloody dead body. And the only way out for our little Gary is to get past Arthur, right? And
yeah, who is completely calm and has no intention of, we think, of hurting Gary.
Well, that's the thing. Is he? Will he? We don't know, right?
Is he lying?
Because we don't know what he's going to do.
Exactly.
And this scene I thought was I had me on the edge. I was like, oh my God, is he? What's he going to do? Is he going to let him? Is he going to let him go, or is he going to? Oh, by the way, and get him. And I'm like, not that I cared for Gary, because they don't make Gary a character that you're like worried, but it's just like you just didn't know how this character was going to react. He's totally at this point, he's totally unpredictable, and that's fairly fascinating. And then he gets to the door, and of course he can't reach the thing, and he's got to ask Arthur to come get him. And Arthur gets up, says, "Oh yeah," he comes over there, and he opens the door and then shuts the door. and there's all these things that just draw it out. And I just really enjoyed how that whole scene played out.
Yeah.
It was
so telling of his character at that point.
Yeah. So that's our review of Joker. Yeah.
I think it's pretty good. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people are going to hear this and completely disagree, and I want to hear about that.
I have a feeling some people are going to throw things at us, but
yeah, probably, but whatever.
Yeah, it won't be the first time.
No.
But yeah, so please let us know what you think. Before we get into closing out the show, let's talk about Birds of Prey trailer, which played before this, sure. Which has a lot of references to Mr. J, right? We kind of played with that at the beginning of the show. Are you looking forward to that? And are you glad that they are indicating that Joker is not going to be a part of that film, that they're broken up?
I think it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be really cute and fun. I am a little, I kind of wish maybe they would have went with a Harley Quinn movie as opposed to making it Birds of Prey. But at the same time, who really is going to go watch a Birds of Prey movie? So if they wanted to get it in there, this was how. So that aside, that slight little weirdness aside, I love Margot Robbie in this role. I think it's going to be fun and flashy, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people out there that are going to have a lot of problems with it. And I think there's going to be a lot of people out there who are just absolutely going to love it. And we've seen cosplayers already. The movie hasn't even come out, and every Harley Quinn cosplayer has done these costumes from the movie. So, it's going to be something. I'll say that. And I think I'm really going to have a good time watching it.
I'm really excited about it. And I'm excited that it's like an all, primarily all female cast.
Yeah.
Right? Regardless that at this point, we have no inclination of which character's which. I mean, we do if you follow it, but if you are just a casual fan, you're like, who are these people, right?
Yeah.
That's the only one you're going to know. And that's a little lost. I think they're focusing a little too much on her, but it makes total sense because most people are going to go see Harley Quinn film.
Exactly.
And then, of course, they have the reshoots, which are planned. Reshoots do not mean a bad film, but the reshoots were also 1 week before she started filming Suicide Squad 2, again, as Harley Quinn. So
Mm-hmm.
we're going to get a lot of Harley Quinn
Completely
connection.
different.
Yeah,
Like, what is
yeah.
Suicide Squad 2 gonna be?
Well, yeah, James Gunn at it. It's
Uh-huh.
going to be a treat.
Yeah.
A
Oh, yeah.
treat.
I'm so sure.
All right. So we want to
Half
hear your
that
thoughts.
cast is gonna die. That's my prediction. Half that cast is gonna die right out the bat.
Probably within the first 10 minutes, right?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, we want to hear what you think of Joker, and what's your prediction on the next Harley Quinn films. If you want to write us in, feedback at horrornewsradio.com is the way to do it. If you want to go to Facebook, look for the Gruesome Magazine Horror News Radio Facebook group and join us there. Or you can go to gruesomemagazine.com and leave your reaction on the blog post for this very podcast. Whichever way you want to do it, we want to hear from you. You can also support H&R. And the best way to do it, honestly, the best way to do it doesn't cost you a thing. It's spread the word. Share the podcast. Tell your friends. Review on iTunes. That's the way you get people interested in the show, and we can continue to grow. If you do want to help our pockets out, you can go to horrornewsradio.com/Patreon. There's a variety of ways to pitch in there. Get some cool stuff. And you can also maybe buy a shirt. horrornewsradio.com/tees. It's TEES. And you can get a Gruesome Magazine shirt or Horror News Radio shirt. And they're cool and awesome.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, we want to thank Rocky Gray for our killer H&R theme song. It is awesome, too. I'm using awesome too much. Tell me to stop. So stay tuned on these various avenues to find out what's next on H&R. I'm not entirely certain we have that locked down just yet. There's a couple choices, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do we go family friendly? Do we go maybe a little actiony sci-fi? What do we do?
I would lean action sci-fi.
No Addams Family for you, huh?
No, nothing against it.
No,
Nothing against it.
That's fine. No Addams Family. That's fine. But
I'm sure it's going to be cute and fun, and kids are going to love it.
Later this month, of course, we have a Zombieland Double Tap and Countdown. So
Yes.
Lots of fun things. So stay tuned for that, and we should have a horror news episode out later in the week when Brother Dave gets back in action.
Brother Dave.
Is
this a cult? Did I join a cult?
It might be. It might be. He's the one that we never see, but rules us all.
Don't say it like that.
That's frightening, isn't it? All right. Well, Vanessa, thank you for joining me this week.
As always, thanks for having me.
All right. Let's say goodnight.
Oh, hi, Bob.
That's right. Hey, Vanessa, when you bring me on the show, can you introduce me as Bob? Do you want to explain that? Now we brought it up and people are going to say, what are they talking about?
Little, this is our code at the end. But we were leaving the theater and we were standing outside of your car, and this guy comes up, he pulls up, and he begins to ask us where the Wendy's is, but stops and goes, "Oh, hey, Bob." And we're just like, look at each other like, what? And Doc gets closer. He's like, "Hey, Bob." "Oh, I thought you were Bob." And then he continues to ask us where the Wendy's is. It was so random.
It was.
And it reminds me so much of What About Bob?
Oh, that's funny. All right. Let's get out of here.
Good night.